Well, I think the first question you have to ask is, why did it happen? I don't think it happened because of guns. I think it happened because somebody who was clearly suffering from severe mental illness
had access to weapons that would allow them to carry out a terrible shooting.
And the mental illness was encouraged.
But Scott, what about people who don't have mental illness?
I don't think we can tiptoe around this issue. And when you look at the messages that were written in some of the materials and on the weapons that we've seen, I mean, this person obviously was in a dark place.
Obviously.
And I want to know.
Obviously.
I'm not sure the government is in that person's life enough to know, but his parents are.
But what
his
about,
family is.
Scott, what about people who don't have mental illness? We have a huge gun violence issue here in the United States. We lead in gun violence.
But the issue today is quite obviously mental illness.
It didn't take long after the tragedy in Minneapolis for the Democrats and the radical left to start calling, of course, for gun control, when clearly this is a mental health issue. And as Scott Jennings rightly pointed out in that first segment, this individual had a mental disorder, right? And many people of the left actually buy into that mental disorder, which of course just makes the whole thing worse. Now, as you can see on the screen over here, we have Penny Flanagan, who is the current lieutenant governor in Minnesota. And notice the shirt she's wearing, right? Protect trans kids. What's the knife for? That's part of the radical left's violent behavior where they're saying, hey, we're going to go out there and protect trans kids at any cost. So, of course, there's a possibility that shooter Robert Westman was doing just that. However, that knife on that T-shirt, of course, should stand for the mutilation of children's genitalia who have been brainwashed by their leftist parents and the radical school system. But let's go ahead and hear that brainwashing from Peggy herself.
Because let's be clear, this is life-affirming and life-saving healthcare. When our children tell us who they are, it is our job as grown-ups to listen and to believe them.
If only someone would have listened and believed Robert Westman, right? Because, of course, we have the manifesto out there detailing some of the most vile things you could possibly imagine. But, of course, there was no intervention on the part of the parents or the community or, of course, his social media followers, etc. But of course, according to Peggy over here, the only thing that's really needed is gender-affirming care, right? Playing into the delusion, backing all of this garbage up with pseudoscience that really only hurts people in the long run. And what I want to highlight next is an excellent clip from Jesse Watters where he pulls no punches, detailing exactly what's going on with these mental health problems, i.e. the trans community.
During the mass, a gunman approached on the outside, on the side of the building, and began firing a rifle through the church windows towards the children sitting in the pews at the Mass. Shooting through the windows, he struck children and worshipers that were inside the building. The shooter was armed with a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol. This was a deliberate act of violence against innocent children.
Students were ducking for cover as round after round pierced through the pews. This should never have happened. But how did it? The shooter was identified as 23-year-old Robin Westman. Robin changed his name from Robert back in 2019 when he was a minor. His mother submitted the name change on his behalf. The court documents say the minor child identifies as female and wanted her name to reflect the identification. So Robert changes his name to Robin and mows down pews of kids at a Catholic school church and then offs himself in the parking lot. And it wasn't just a random church. His mother used to work there. CNN reports Westman actually graduated from there in 2017. And this morning he showed up with a rifle, shotgun, and pistol. Hours before the shooting, Westman posted a 20-minute video where he paged through a manifesto, described himself as severely depressed and suicidal. He fantasized about the Sandy Hook massacre and said he loves to see kids get shot. The morning shooting was obviously premeditated because there was a drawing of the floor plans in his notebook. The video also shows Jesus' face as target practice. Westman wrote things on his weapons, such as, "Where is your God? Israel must fall. Nuke India. Suck on this. And kill Donald Trump." The FBI is investigating this as an act of domestic terror and a hate crime targeting Catholics. But police say they don't know anything.
We don't have a motive at this time. Obviously, we're open to any possibilities at all, but we don't have a motive.
The media says the motive doesn't matter. It's the gun's fault.
I think it's either like you have to be honest and say what will actually work, which is what nobody wants to hear, which is that there are just simply way too many firearms and they're way too accessible. And even if they're
too powerful?
And they're too powerful. Even handguns, too.
So a suicidal transgender who hates Trump's Christians and Jews shoots up kids at a Catholic school, and the media wants to take away your handgun. So how are we supposed to protect ourselves from trans shooters? The media is bad at pattern recognition. We aren't. Just 2 years ago, another trans 20-something walked into a Christian school in Nashville with a rifle and shot 3 kids and 3 adults. They buried the manifesto and locked down the case. We've seen trans shootings in Colorado and in Maryland. They even shot up an ICE facility in Texas. And it seems like half of Antifa's trans. A couple of they, thems just got popped for firebombing Teslas. The mayor of Minneapolis says, you can't say that.
Anybody who is using this as an opportunity to villainize our trans community or any other community out there has lost their sense of common humanity. We should not be operating out of a place of hate for anyone. We should be operating from a place of love for our kids.
I don't hate anyone who thinks they're trans. I feel sorry for them. But statistically, the trans population has been prone to violence. That's not villainizing, that's reality. And if you can't recognize reality, you're in danger. We love the American people, especially American children. And if they're troubled and believe they're somehow a girl trapped in a boy's body, we want to get them help. We don't want to give them hormones and operate on them. Society shouldn't be trying to produce more trans kids. We shouldn't be encouraging an emotional disorder or whatever this is. And doctors should stop profiting from it. Great Britain ended child sex change surgeries. They said it's barbaric, and they're right. And politicians should stop elevating the trans issue like it's the civil rights struggle of the 21st century. You see it all over Minneapolis.
Minneapolis will continue to be a safe haven for our trans community.
For being a safe haven for transgender individuals.
We have sued them for gender-affirming care. Yes, we are not going to scapegoat our transgender community.
So when your 9-year-old tells you he's a horse, do you let him sleep out in the barn and eat hay? What are we doing here? Just a few years ago, the psychiatric community classified transgenderism as a mental illness. Then doctors went woke and removed it as a condition, and now millions of young Americans are identifying themselves as trans and getting high fives. When someone has an illness, we should treat it instead of affirm it. We don't celebrate schizophrenia. We don't encourage depression. Teenagers are confused. Sometimes these things are just a phase. And if they're not, all right, then a grown man can wear a dress. If he wants to do that in America, he has that right. We're a pretty darn tolerant society. But the left's weaponizing trans kids and turning them into culture warriors. And they've been turned loose against the church, schools, and Trump. You see it, I see it. The trans clan has a militant wing, and it's out for blood.
So that's what I want to highlight first, okay? The rise of the violence in the radical left. This has been going on for years. If you remember all the way back in 2016 when Donald Trump ran for president the first time, you had his supporters who were leaving his rallies being attacked in droves by roving gangs, all right? Some of them even trying to light them on fire, right? It was completely insane. And that's because the radical left views violence as a tool that is acceptable against people that they view as evil, all right? And of course, who out there is evil? Everyone to the right of them. And as Jesse Watters pointed out, just a few of the instances of extreme violence against law enforcement and individuals. Okay, so it does exist. It is there. But the murderer, Robert Westman, his own mother allowed him to transition, right? Changed his name before he turned 18 and, of course, bought into all of this transgender, gender-affirming care garbage. All right, but of course, he described himself as being severely depressed in his manifesto. Well, guess what has an effect on depression? That would be antidepressants. As is shown here by the NIH, on March 22nd of 2004, 2024, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration issued a health advisory informing the public that manufacturers of several popular antidepressants have been asked to include a warning statement on product labeling. This warning statement recommends that antidepressant-treated patients, both children and adults, should be closely monitored for worsening depression or emergence of suicidal behavior. So in many instances, right, you have these transgender individuals feeling depressed. And of course, they want to go out and get that gender-affirming care, and yet it doesn't help. And they're on antidepressants, and the antidepressants only exacerbate any type of suicidal thoughts, right? And this is something that's been popping up more and more in studies, that all of these people who are actually incredibly violent, suicidal, doing these attacks are on these antidepressants, on these antipsychotics. And guess what? They actually exacerbate this exact same type of scenario. But rather than go ahead and address the core cause of this issue, what is the media doing? Oh, it's a gun grab. Obviously, it's the guns. That's the big issue, okay? But of course, the media should really be appreciating the Second Amendment at this point in time, because they're out there calling Donald Trump a dictator. He's taking over America. He's subjugating the people. Look at what he's doing in D.C. Look at his threats in Chicago, right? How are you going to fight back against that if you don't have the Second Amendment, right? Because none of this stuff really matters to them. All that really matters is the fact that you don't get to have a gun to protect yourself or your life. Now, of course, I'm not actually advocating for anyone to take up arms against Donald Trump, but think about this, right? If he really was a despot, if he was taking over the government and therefore trying to subjugate all of the people, then why in the world would you only want them to have all of the firearms? And even though firearms are used up to 500,000 times a year to stop crime in this country, the left still gets upset when you are allowed to exercise your Second Amendment right. So clearly this issue has one factor in it that really matters. And that, of course, was the mental illness that the left has been propagating, the mental illness the left has been buying into, and the mental illness the left still refuses to turn away from, even in modern platforms, because all those videos that were being shown were from just 2 days ago at the DNC Summer Summit in Minnesota. All right, so they haven't changed their tune one bit. But thank goodness you and I are still lucid enough to put 2 and 2 together, unlike the mainstream media and the radical left and the Democrats. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and stay safe out there, people, because they're coming after you. Really good news. There's a Labor Day sale going on at my online t-shirt store. So if you've been waiting to buy something, go ahead and check out these wonderful designs about patriotism and America. And you can also support the channel at the same time. So enjoy yourselves and find something you like today. And don't forget, all of these designs are 100% mother approved.